and welcome. This is NC Debrief on News Central. The Debrief brings Africa's social stories into focus through analysis and perspectives each and every week. Now, with our guests, we dissect the pressing issues and look out for angles and opinions that are not in the mainstream. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun, and again, I welcome you. Now, today, we're looking at a rarely discussed issue, and that is the realities of organ donation in Africa. I have one guest today, and the reason I have one is because she is more than capable of discussing all aspects surrounding organ donation and transplantation. Now, with me for the debrief, I have Hilaria Asumu, and she is an organ recipient as well as a campaigner for organ donation. So before we get into more of her story, don't forget that you can as well join the conversation. Use the hashtag NCDebrief and share your thoughts on organ donation and transplantation with us. Now, we'll get started with a video from our guest, and then we get straight into the conversation.
I want the whole world to know I had kidney disease. It is a feat in itself that I survived 10 years of it, and I'm still standing. I had a miscarriage at 22 weeks, which progressed quickly to septicemia and multiple organ failure, which also ensured that my kidneys stopped working. I was a vibrant person. I loved to party, and I look back at the kind of person I was, and I look at what I became, afterwards. I was a shadow of myself. I was told that I'd been put on the transplant list, and I had a 10-year plus wait. That was another devastating news because I couldn't understand why I had to wait, why this had to happen to me at this point. At a point, I questioned God because I couldn't believe that despite everything I was doing, He was putting me through this. But in fact, He was preparing me for what I'm going to do amongst my community. I found my faith again. And when I got the call, it was like a miracle. I could not believe I got the kidney. And afterwards, after the transplant, it was a dream come true. It was something that I cannot put into words how I felt that day. It was like I was floating. I did not expect it. Least expected, and it happened. And I'm here. I'm alive. A second chance at life. My children are going to see me. I didn't mind if I had tubes coming out of my nose everywhere. I just wanted to burst into song and sing. And I sat there happy. I was happy because this is something that I cannot thank God enough for.
10 years waiting for an organ donation. Hilaria had the transplant sometime in March last year, and this is a year down the line. And watching that video, you're still getting a bit emotional about this journey you went through. And just tell us a bit about some of the things we didn't see, how you felt in the 10 years. In the 10 years that you were waiting, what were the emotions you were going through? And then, of course, all the process of the transplantation, and then afterwards, post-care as well.
Well, looking at that video, it sets me off every time. I am an ambassador for organ donation in the UK, and every time I play that video, people around me, they've got tears, they're crying. For me, it just brings everything back because I waited for a long time, and there were points where I was so ill, they had to rush me in, calling the ambulance every time I had a crisis, and being rushed in, and I'm thinking at that moment, I am going to die. And I had children at home, 2 kids, who didn't know whether they were coming or going. I had to start preparing them to be independent.
Without
me, to do things for themselves, which, is worked out for me today, that I'm able to be in Nigeria campaigning. But it was really hard for the whole family, including my husband, who is also a doctor, and having to go to his hospital to look after other people whilst his wife is at home suffering and going through all those. The aftercare was great. I cannot fault the hospital or the nurses or the kind of aftercare I got from the hospital. It's all the checks. Now, during dialysis, some people prefer to go to the hospital.
And some prefer it at home.
Yes, but some people prefer it at home. That is, it's called HHD, which is home hemodialysis. And I did that because I felt I needed more control because I have a needle phobia.
Oh.
So that needle phobia meant that I couldn't allow anybody near me with a needle. It's either I'm passing out from seeing the needle, or it's
a sort of a fight to even just get the needle near you.
Fight or flight, and I always flew. And the nurses have to hold me down and say, Hilary, it's okay, you'll be fine. But I think one of the nurses looked at it and said, she's more in control of herself when she's doing it herself. So they taught me how to put my needles in, 2 needles in, and I've got this scar marks on my arm today, and I just felt the nurses were always there to walk you through, to explain what you're doing. If you don't understand anything, you can ask the doctors. It is not something they hide, because the more information you have, the better you can look after yourself.
And of course, the more informed you feel, the better in control, and that always helps patients in the long run.
Yes.
Now, your situation is slightly different because all of this happened in the UK.
Exactly.
But the realities of organ donation on the continent are are actually very different. Now, organ donation takes place when healthy organs and tissues from a donor and are transplanted into a recipient. Most donations occur around the time the donor has died, but some can also be done while donors are alive. Organs cannot be stored for much too long after someone has died, and usually must be used within hours of removing them from a donor's body. Internal organs that you can donate include kidneys, the liver, the pancreas, heart, intestines, and lungs. Transplantation is often used to treat also end-stage kidney disease, and diabetes is also a most common cause of kidney and pancreas transplantation. Now, there are other things that you can, of course, donate as well in terms of tissue, and also blood donation happens to be one of the greatest needs that we have on the African continent, because donated blood is often used to treat pregnancy-related complications, anemia, sickle cell disease, as well as malaria. The numbers are not good. 38 countries in the African region or on the African continent collected fewer than 10 donations per 1,000 people in the population. Now, I want to get to a point where we have this conversation about why people are not donating, but while we're having that conversation, I want us to also keep something in the back of our mind. Economic growth and corresponding increases in health expenditures in the African continent mean that we can confidently anticipate an increased demand for organ transplantation over the next few years. So we're seeing a slightly wealthier African continent, and with that wealth comes changes in lifestyle. With those things also come healthcare expenditures and burdens that communities and economies will find on themselves. But one of the things we do know is that we're going to need more organ donors, and we're going to need to see more transplantation happen on the continent. But why are people not readily available to be organ donors?
Well, in the UK, I know that the white populace, they're quite willing to step into the hospital off the street to donate altruistically to people who require organs now.
So that happens with blood donations, and even sometimes people are willing to get tested to be a match for kidneys as well.
Exactly. So someone can come off the street and say, I would like to donate as a life donor. So you can donate a liver. They can cut off a quarter or half of your liver and regenerate to its normal size. So they can do that to help somebody else. Now, there is a system where when an organ comes in, they would search for somebody in the whole of the country, and that organ will go to that person. So it's not who you know or anything like that. So for the Black community, it is really hard. The only thing most of the people in the Black community do is life donation, and they only donate to relatives.
Relatives and friends.
Exactly. Friends would be probably a little bit.
It depends on how good of a friend, maybe. Okay.
And sometimes you find that people are a bit reluctant to accept an organ from members of the family or from friends, because they feel really bad that in case this person gets sick later, they might need that organ. So there's that reluctance to accept it.
Okay.
And now, in terms of, why they don't want to donate, their cultural beliefs from different backgrounds, they all have beliefs about organs. Their religious beliefs as well, because in some churches, the pastors preach that you have to go to heaven with your whole physical body.
Funny enough, you said that. I was reading up on researching this, and one of a doctor in Kenya has found that she needs cornea transplants. And one of the issues that she's had is that they've been told that they need their whole body and they need their eyes. And so when she's talking about this to people, trying to educate them, they're telling her that they need their eyes to see in heaven. I had a conversation on radio about organ donation and transplantation a few years ago, and I remember one caller who called in and said, if I die, I'll go to heaven and I won't be complete. And I thought to myself, is that truly the understanding that we have of, number one, going to heaven, and then number two, of organ donation? How do we counter those? Because those are cultural, they're religious, they're traditional. We have Muslims who are mandated to bury their dead the same day. So we have to look at how those kind of obstacles are overcome. So how are you doing that? Because this is also something you're now spending your life to campaign about.
Exactly. Well, because I'm not the only one who is campaigning. Now, usually what they do in the UK, because I don't know about Nigeria, that's why I'm here to talk about it and campaign about it. Usually what happens is that they send out recipients who are willing to campaign about their experience and talk to people and, encourage them, raise awareness, encourage them to step forward to become organ donation. Now, my video is being used currently to sensitize the black community, to raise awareness about organ donation.
Because you look like them, so they'll listen.
Exactly. So you can't expect that in a community of black people, a white person comes and talks about organ donation. They need to identify with that person. So I'm that person. So I go there and tell them that this is the reason I'm here. Watch my video, and I talk to them, and they have a lot of questions. You find that people don't really know a lot about organ donation.
What are some of the questions you've encountered?
Oh, well, some of the questions I've encountered are something like, will it hurt? And I go,
it's a surgery.
You'll be dead for the cyst donation.
Wow.
And then for the live donation, I tell them, listen, you'll be under anesthetic. You would not even know. And when you come out, you can actually go straight back to work. You'll be well taken care of. I know about the UK, I don't know about Nigeria. So I can't actually talk about the health system in Nigeria. But I know that people donate to their children and they're okay, and they're taking pictures. It's on Twitter, it's everywhere. They're so grateful, they want to do more. Brothers are giving to sisters, sisters are giving to... It's just, amazing the way things happen. For the deceased donation bit of it, I think because of that religious beliefs and then peer pressure of family, because a lot of people, willingly go forward to sign up. I am a donor. So it doesn't mean that because you've got a long-term health condition, because I'm classed as one. Okay. It doesn't mean that you can't donate. You can. That's what my badge here is for. It tells people that I am a donor. I have a card I carry around
in your wallet as well.
And that one would, when an ambulance comes and the person is about to die, they put them on life support because there are certain conditions. They need to
harvest. I don't want to use the word harvest because harvest comes with such...
They have to use so they can be able to use the organs when the person passes on, when the person dies. Now, a lot of people think that when you die, they just take your organs that way. No. You have to meet certain conditions, and that law is not going to change in the UK anytime soon.
Let's pause on that, because you bring in the issue of laws, and across the continent there are not many African countries that even have a national policy on organ donation or transplantation, or even have legal framework around this issue. We're going to take a quick break on the NC Debrief. When we come back, we get into the legislative framework and what we can do to increase people's knowledge and awareness of the need to be an organ donor, and of course to be open to transplantation. Thank you so much for staying with us. My guest, of course, is still in the studio, and we're discussing the realities of organ donation and transplantation here on the continent. And as we went for that break, we were bringing up the issue of the legislative legal framework. Now, there are several countries on the continent which are building up a living-related donor transplantation list and trying to bring these things into play. Now, active living donor transplantation is already taking place in South Africa, Tunisia, and Sudan, but deceased donation, as of right now, according to available research, is only available in South Africa, and we need to change those numbers. And it's also even difficult getting the numbers of Africans who need the various types of organ transplants and who are the people who are available to be donors. So the legal framework is also part of this conversation as well. And you have to look at whether or not people at the age of 18, whatever age your country recognizes you to be a legal adult, if you can carry a card in your wallet saying if something happens and you die, you want your organs to be used for transplantation. How we talk about how we deal with grieving families, because as you were telling me during the break, grieving families can decide over the wishes of the deceased that the organs are not donated. So how do we bring all of this to bear in a conversation on the continent where people are very tied to their cultural beliefs, their religious beliefs, their traditional beliefs, and they do want to help, but those things seem to just be an obstacle in the need of having this conversation?
Yeah. Well, there is a question we always ask people. If you are in need or your child is in need of an organ, would you receive it? And if the answer is yes, if you would receive, why wouldn't you give? Because you're taking and you're not giving.
And I'm very sure it's a very small percentage of people who actually say no, that they won't receive.
Very small percent. In fact, nobody ever says, I wouldn't.
Wow.
They all say yes. So if you would take to save yourself or your child or your family, because children as young as 2, there was a little girl in the UK who was born from birth with kidney disease, and she'd been on the list for ages, and the family had been campaigning, and I was campaigning as well, and you know, she's only recently just got one. Wow. For a family like that, would they not, they are campaigning to receive one, do you think they would not sign up to become organ donors? Of course they would. I received one. I'm grateful to my donor family, and I have signed up, and I'm even looking at becoming a liver life donor as well, because you have to show by example. You don't tell people to do something
if you're not willing to do it.
If you're not willing to do it. So I go everywhere, either with my badge or with my card, to say I am an organ donor as well. If I'm asking you to do it, then you know I have to show good example, you know, about that. Now, in terms of the law and things around that, there is a new law coming into law. There's a new law coming in next year. May 2020, spring 2020, which is called the Max and Kira law. Now, this law means that if somebody signed up to be an organ donor, they are deemed, well, previously you had to opt in to be an organ donor. Now, you have to opt out.
Because the numbers of people signing in, I know in the UK and other places, had actually decreased over a number of years.
Exactly.
And so many people had sort of intensified the campaign.
Yes.
So now it's to opt out.
Yes.
Automatically, if you decease, if you end up finding yourself that you are deceased, you know. But you find that if they look at you and you have organs that can be used, you're automatically a donor.
Exactly. So you have to opt out for them not to
use your organs.
Use your organs. Now, the law states that it will be deemed you've given consent for your organs to be used if you don't opt out. Now, having said that, the law also states that if you don't opt out, or if you've opted in and you signed up, everything on the system is shown there. When it's not, which is specialist nurses organ donation, that's what SNOT stands for. When they come to speak to your family, they can show them that you've actually indicated you want to be an organ donor.
Yeah.
But probably you have about 50 members of the family, like African families can be, and just one person says no.
And it stops the process.
It stops the process. It doesn't happen. But one thing I want to let people know is that don't think about it that way. Think about it like this. Your child, your relative is saving the lives of up to 85 people if you agree to organ donation.
Up to 85 people?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a quick pause. We still have another video because we stepped out and we asked people what their thoughts on organ donation were and if they would be willing to be organ donors. So let's see what they had to say.
It depends on my closeness to the patient in question. So that's it. But it's a very big sacrifice anyway, but I don't know if I can.
I think the only condition where I can donate my kidney is for my wife. Yes, I understand with one kidney you can still be a normal individual. It takes nothing off you. But there is that risk that if that only single kidney fails, you are at risk. But I think it's worth it if there is need to donate for one's wife. So I think I can. But that's the only person I can actually donate to, not any other person.
Well, personally, I don't think it's good to donate your kidney. It's why, you know, God knows how He provided this for us. So we don't need to decide on your own and give people out. Yes, there's some people that use this for money. Share you understand? But I personally don't believe in it.
Do you know how old I am? I'm just 23. No, I won't donate my kidney. Even if it's to my father, my father is old now. He will not even let me donate my kidney to him. You understand? But if it's my child, I can donate my kidney to my child, but not me donating my kidney to any other person.
That last one there left me slightly speechless, but we see some of the comments and it relates back to what you discussed earlier, how abroad or in the West, as we would say, people will walk off the streets, and some people have regularly scheduled blood donations that they make. People will sign up and say, let me know if I'm a match. If there's a specific campaign for an individual, people will voluntarily go to a hospital and do it. But from all the people we spoke to here, most of them are looking for it to be a loved one or a relative, and apparently not even their father qualifies. Well, but what are your thoughts on that? And obviously seems that we have a lot of work to do to change the narrative around organ donation and transplantation.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's the same thing I see in the UK when I'm talking about organ donation. Even with people who are educated, who are medical professionals, when I ask them, because I go to a lot of events, I ask them if they want to sign up to become organ donors. They say no. They will do the blood donation, but they won't do the organ donation, which is surprising, considering the fact that this is a life-saving organ. You don't have to give it as a life donor. You can sign up for when you die. And believe me, sometimes they're unable to use the organs if the person dies in certain conditions.
Yes.
So you have to be in ICU, on life support, and before they can even consider using your organs, 2 doctors have to certify you brain dead before they can start thinking of speaking to your family about organ donation.
And some of us are not even living such healthy lifestyles, so the organs may not necessarily be as healthy as we think they are.
They usually are, because you'll be surprised how much damage or how much abuse the kidney can take. I know about the kidney because
That's
was a kidney
transplant,
patient. Yes. The kidney can take so much abuse, up to 2%. Just recently, somebody called me and said somebody had just been diagnosed with kidney disease. And I said, let me see the results. Their kidney function was up to 2%. And their creatinine was at 2,606. That meant if that person waited any longer, they'll be dead.
Wow.
Sometimes people don't know they have kidney disease until they drop down dead.
That's true. That's true.
So it's really mind-boggling that people don't think about what they put in the mouth, because you can get kidney disease through untreated or recurrent UTIs. So that's toilet disease, as they call it in Nigeria. Or you could have it with high blood pressure, uncontrolled high blood pressure. Or just like me, you enter it suddenly. Yeah. And some people it's hereditary, so it could be it runs in the family. So there are different ways of going into kidney disease. Now, doing that, you go to the hospital. In the UK, you go to the hospital, they do the blood tests. And if you ask questions, I want people to ask questions of their doctors. Don't just sit down and accept it. Ask them to explain
each and everything that's there, part of the diagnosis.
Exactly. The diagnosis most of the time they use the figures from the creatinine and the EGFR. That's the kidney function. So that's how they know. So it's from 15% downwards before they start considering dialysis. So if you go into the hospital and say, I'm taking you through to dialysis, just ask them, what percentage is my EGFR? That's the one that tells what your kidney function is.
Okay, now we have to start wrapping things up, but in all of this, what I'm getting is that knowledge, continue to educate ourselves, ask our doctors questions whether it's kidney disease or heart issues or even skin or tissue issues. But apart from that, finding a way to sort of bring the reality to people where it's not simply a situation of you being involved in it because it's someone you love. Being able to do it for a stranger because you never know when even your own family or a loved one might need it. Now, I want us to end on a happy note because sometimes talking about these things it really brings sort of the perspective of life and death to somebody. And in this whole journey you've had of being a recipient and now being someone who campaigns for donor transplant or for organ donation and transplants on the continent and across, what's something you've seen that made you really think that this journey, that this is where you're sort of finding a purpose for yourself?
Yes, in the course of my campaign and speaking to people from Nigeria on Facebook Messenger, I realized that a lot of people don't have money for dialysis, so they die. The cost. And usually within 2 days, because someone just died recently, within 2 days of being diagnosed with kidney disease. So that means they go. So
there's literally no time for even any form of treatment at all.
But if they'd caught it early and earlier, probably they'll be alive today. Now, a lot of people don't have money for dialysis, so they end up, deciding, playing lottery with their lives and deciding when they're going to do their dialysis. So I decided, thinking about it, that I want to come home and I want to do something for the people in Nigeria. So I decided to bring home a free dialysis center for people on low income only. Anybody else who is able to afford it will have to pay, but the people on low income are going to be looked after. And the clinic is going to be based in Benin City. That's the pilot program. And what I want to do is everybody who's coming on, we don't just take anybody, you have to apply to the Board of Trustees for the charity in the UK. And once the center is sorted, everybody would be put through the system and they start coming in for dialysis. Now, somebody's actually donated solar panels to run the machines 24/7, for the rest of the time we're going to be there. And I want it to be for life so that anybody who has a problem knows that they have somewhere to go to. And hopefully, if it's successful in Benin City, in Edo State, scale it across Nigeria. And if there are people out there who can actually contribute and build others, I'm willing to share the plans of the clinic, how it's done, bring in the expertise to advise them on how to set it up. We have to look after
I want to say it's very ambitious, but it's also very necessary, and we also applaud you for the initiative you're taking in that regard. Hilaria, Asumu, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. And that's it on today's debrief. We've been looking at the realities of organ donation and transplantation on the continent, and we do hope that we have been able to at least open your eyes and open your mind to something many of us rarely do discuss or talk about. So go further, look up more information on your own, find out if you could be an organ donor for someone you know and someone you don't know as well, because we're looking to see how we can make sure that we spread the message of organ donation and transplantation on the continent. That's it on today's NC Debrief. Please don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms using @NewsCentralTV, and you can also head to our website www.newscentral.ng for more. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. We'll see you next week on another NC Debrief. Hi, my name is Tolu. You're watching News Central TV. Click here to subscribe to our YouTube channel.